It begins with a moment so sharp it almost slices through the noise of political theater. The realization that the man at the center of the controversial blue light saga now insists that he had absolutely nothing to do with the alleged misuse of VIP protection units. Yet in the same breath, he acknowledges a long-held closeness with a political figure whose influence has hovered over the narrative from the very beginning. It's the kind of contradiction that doesn't just raise eyebrows. It forces a full re-examination of the assumptions many people thought were settled. From here, the story unwinds with a strange mixture of confidence, denial, and unexpected honesty. It's the type of testimony that refuses to sit quietly in a corner. Instead, it ripples through the chamber, sending investigators, observers, and supporters of each faction scrambling mentally as they try to decide whether what they're hearing tightens the truth or unravels it further. And the payoff for staying with this unfolding tale is the chance to witness exactly how fragile political narratives can be once one key figure chooses to speak more boldly than expected. Before diving deeper, consider this question that hangs over the entire commission like fog refusing to lift. Can a political relationship be so influential, so embedded, that even when a scandal erupts, the visible actions tell only half the story? People often judge public figures by what they do or claim to do, but the real power sometimes lies in the connections they swear are harmless. And as this inquiry shows, those connections rarely stay in the shadows forever. Now enters the first wave of testimony. It begins with a simple but striking question echoing across the chamber. How does a public figure deny involvement in a matter so widely circulated in the public domain? There's something oddly calm in the way Julius Mkhwanazi distances himself from the blue light allegations, painting a picture of an official walking through a storm while insisting he feels no rain. His words strike a nerve because they collide with what many assume about political authority, namely, that where there is smoke, there is usually someone holding a match. The next moment challenges that assumption even more. Mkhwanazi's insistence that he never issued, supported, or benefited from any unauthorized blue light privileges hits like a jolt. It forces everyone listening to pause and wonder what the implications might be if the denial is true, partially true, or carefully framed. Denials in political inquiries are never just sentences, they are chess moves. Each one shifts the weight of the board, especially when the figure speaking carries enough influence to tip public confidence in one direction or another. Then comes a vivid shift in atmosphere, almost like a courtroom drama unfolding in real time. Imagine the internal machinery of political staffers and attorneys reacting to his words, papers rustling, notes rapidly scribbled, subtle glances exchanged. These are not casual reactions. They are the reflexes of people who have long learned that one unexpected sentence in testimony can set off a chain reaction of new probing questions, new interpretations, and new strategies. The room may have been silent, but within that silence, the heat was unmistakable. A softer tone follows, almost anecdotal in feel, as Mkhwanazi steps into a delicate explanation about proximity to political figures, and how, in his view, such closeness does not necessarily translate into shared wrongdoing. It's a common defense, one used across commissions worldwide. The idea that knowing someone well doesn't automatically mean inheriting their controversies. Yet the Madlaga Commission is built precisely to examine those blurred borders, to test whether mere proximity can fuel or obstruct political power in ways the public rarely sees. He then shifts into a slightly more reflective mode, suggesting that in high-stakes public roles, accusations often collide with the responsibility of leadership, leaving many officials feeling cornered before they've even had a chance to speak. The idea is simple. Denials often fail not because they are false, but because political audiences are conditioned to distrust them. This statement, though indirectly crafted, feels like a mirror pointed back at South Africa's political climate, one where history has repeatedly shown that transparency is never guaranteed but always demanded. A question then rises about what makes his admission of closeness to Matlala so important. It is one thing to deny involvement in an operational saga, but it is another entirely to acknowledge a personal tie that may explain why certain assumptions were made. That admission opens a window for investigators to explore influence, motive, and context in ways that a denial alone could never block. It stirs curiosity about how political relationships shape decisions even when no instructions are explicitly given. In the next breath, comes a surprising reflection on the longevity of political friendships, how they often outlast campaigns, positions, or public controversies. These bonds weave through years of cooperation, rivalries, shared struggles, and unspoken loyalties. To many eyes, this creates a dangerous environment where accountability becomes harder to trace. Yet for those within the networks, such relationships are simply a survival mechanism in turbulent political spaces. Mkhwanazi's admission doesn't condemn him, but it also doesn't free him from the interpretations that follow. The final moment in this first section lands with an image rather than a statement. The cross-examination room holding still as his acknowledgement of closeness to Madlaga leaves investigators recalibrating the trajectory of their questions. Testimony often shifts not through dramatic confessions, but through the understated sentences that connect dots previously left floating. And this was one of those moments, the type that sends an unspoken message that the inquiry has entered a new stage. With the first wave complete, the second begins with a tone that feels almost personal, as if Mkhwanazi hopes to remind the commission that behind all the allegations, he is still a man who navigates complex political spaces like anyone else in his position. He points to the invisible corridors created by relationships, how power moves subtly through trust, familiarity, and shared objectives. To the outside world, these corridors look suspicious. To those on the inside, they feel natural, even necessary. Then the pace shifts into a more reflective note about how personal alliances can transform into political burdens the moment scrutiny tightens. One day a friendship is simply a friendship. The next day it is a headline, a puzzle piece, a point of suspicion. Mkhwanazi appears keenly aware of the fragility of these transitions. His tone remains steady, but underneath it lies an acknowledgement that no powerful association comes without risks, especially when one of those associates is already in the shadow of a national controversy. What follows is a probing exploration into whether his denial might be technically accurate while still leaving contextual questions open. Political figures are often fluent in this form of careful language. The truth can be a maze, accessible, but only through the path chosen by the speaker. The Commission's role, of course, is to test whether the straight path exists or whether they are being led through a narrative detour designed to avoid the sharper edges of accountability. There is then a shift into a striking insight about how commissions like this often find their deeper truths not through documents or direct accusations, but through relationships. Human connections leave traces, patterns of communication, shared decision environments, aligned strategies. A denial may protect an individual action, but a relationship often reveals the architecture around that action. This is why the admission of closeness carries more weight than many casual observers might realize. The story deepens with a visualization of spectators inside and outside the chamber processing the growing contradictions. Political audiences form interpretations quickly, and once a narrative takes hold, it spreads effortlessly. Every conflicting detail amplifies public uncertainty, creating a pressure chamber where both truth and misinformation thrive side by side. The Commission, in this way, becomes not just an investigative body, but also a stage where reputations mutate in real time. A softer anecdotal reflection follows, touching on the quiet, almost mundane moments in political life that often reveal more than any formal statement. A gesture, a shared car ride, a private conversation. These fragments rarely make it into official transcripts, yet they shape the relationships under scrutiny. Mkhwanazi's composure suggests he knows this too well. He is trying to present a version of himself that aligns with his statements while navigating the shadows of unspoken history. There's then a contemplative passage about the fine line between loyalty and liability. In politics, loyalty is currency. It buys trust, support, and influence. But it can also cost freedom, opportunity, or credibility when circumstances shift. This tension lies at the heart of many scandals, and the Madlaga Commission is an arena where such tensions come into full view. Mkhwanazi stands in that tension, attempting to show loyalty without allowing it to tie him to wrongdoing. The narrative then turns toward Madlaga, examining what he might gain or lose from these revelations. Political figures exist in ecosystems where allies can become shields or liabilities. The acknowledgement of closeness could either humanize him or reinforce the suspicion around his name. His fate is intertwined with Mkhwanazi's statements more deeply than either may openly admit. Then arrives a powerful shift. The recognition that one single admission, even one made almost casually, can redirect an entire investigation. It shows how fragile the direction of a commission can be, how a single sentence can open months of new inquiry or close chapters investigators thought were still unfolding. Testimony is rarely neutral. Every word leaves footprints. The final block of the second wave brings in a cinematic image of the commission chambers as everyone processes the combination of denial, admission, caution, and confidence radiating from the testimony. There is a sense that the room is holding its breath, waiting for the story to move from fragments to patterns. The commission thrives on such moments, the ones that reveal where the next fault line might appear. As the closing section unfolds, the focus shifts to the broader implications of what has been said. The denial of involvement in the Blue Light saga, combined with the admission of a long-standing political closeness, paints a more complex portrait than many expected. It becomes clear that this story is not about a simple question of did he or didn't he, but rather about how political influence circulates through networks of trust, familiarity, and strategic alignment. These networks do not operate in the open. They thrive in nuance, in understanding, in unspoken agreements that can shape public outcomes without ever being formalized. There is a lingering sense that the Commission's work is far from over. The contradictions, clarifications, and subtle revelations have opened more doors than they have closed. And watching the testimony unfold is like watching a puzzle that looks complete from a distance, but reveals missing pieces the moment you lean in closer. This hearing was never meant to deliver instant clarity. It was designed to peel back the layers of a political environment that has long operated in partial shadow. The audience, both in the chamber and beyond, is left anticipating the next hearings, not because they expect explosive confessions, but because they now understand how even the smallest admissions can alter the course of the narrative. The Madlaga Commission has become a place where political truth emerges not in declarations, but in the delicate dance between what is said, what is denied, and what is finally acknowledged after years of silence.